I'm sitting here with a Bodhi tree leaf almost in my eye. This Bodhi tree is a grandchild of the original, where the Buddha became enlightened, apparently. And I wanted to read a passage by Krishnamurti about listening to a tree, not just to the sounds of the leaves in the wind, but something else. It has a unique leaf, and there's mosquitoes trying to eat me too. Yesterday I watched one bite me, and I was wondering if one can spread one's DNA about the world through allowing mosquitoes to bite. And then DNA, my DNA, becomes the mosquitoes, and all of a sudden, all the mosquitoes are me. It's kind of weird. I know that's a really weird one, but like, does our vibration, is it contained in our blood? And if mosquitoes bite us, does that pass information to mosquitoes, which passes information to other things, and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's an intelligence here. So is it actually intelligent to let mosquitoes bite? I don't think so, but it's kind of fun to think about. And last night, after I was at that hot springs for 2 hours and also dipped in a cold river twice, I slept really well. I felt so relaxed before I was falling asleep, and none of that remote viewing type stuff of in between waking and sleeping was happening. Maybe just a tiny iota, but then it didn't continue. So I only took half a Seroquel. I didn't have to take the other half, and I took one trazodone, and I didn't have to take another half of that. So I will continue with that and take the other half of the Seroquel if I need to. Feeling itchy all over. And last night at the hot springs was fun, just laughing and being ridiculous with people. And today I was thinking, what can I be present for? Like, what doesn't feel like effort? And it's not a matter of not liking or anything. It's just a matter of, if there was a little bit more alignment, would that move me towards thriving and even more energy? I think I like talking, so if I was teaching in some fashion, I'd probably like it. Yesterday there was a dialogue thing, and I just felt like I wanted to be talking more, and not as like talking more in that situation, but I had this sense that if I had the opportunity to talk more, I would like that. So where is what I have to say needed? Because even where I am now, I'm sensing that some of the more general stuff in dialogue, to like talking about the human condition in general, or what's beyond it, which I feel like I've touched and maybe able to touch somewhat on a daily basis, and it just doesn't really feel special because it's been somewhat normalized. But I feel like I still have more to say in terms of the mental health area. What I'm getting at is, if I were to talk about things at the level of enlightenment and blah blah blah, people aren't really going to listen. But if I talk about mental health stuff, people might listen because it's more specific to that. Yet at the same time, I think it applies to a larger perspective. It's just not necessarily the one that needs what I have to say. And I don't mean needs as in I'm just trying to figure out how to be in alignment with something so that the thing that I do effortlessly, which is maybe talk about mental health and related stuff, is received. It's not necessarily applicable where I'm at now. Whereas if I was back in mental health, maybe it would be. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do know that mosquitoes are making new mosquitoes out of me. And I was also thinking about how I can listen really well, meaning if I'm in a room with several people and there's one conversation going on, I probably hear 99% of the words without drifting off or any thinking of my own. So it's complete silence, only hearing the words that people say and actually hearing what they say. So if I can listen that well, which I seem to be able to, I don't know for sure, what should I be listening to? Like, where should I be and what should I be doing with my senses to sort of be the best translator of whatever it is? So if I can listen really well, yet I'm at a political conference, which I have no interest in or no real context, I shouldn't be sitting there listening to that because it's sort of a waste. It's a waste of that listening. Whereas somebody else who can really listen, who is into that sphere, would be perfect in that area. So I feel like, where can I be where I can listen? What do I want to listen to, or what can I listen to, and also have an opportunity to say what I need to say, or say what I'm here to say. It's sort of like alignment with some kind of alignment with the universe, and everybody has a little bit different of a path. And I'm seeing where I am now as an opportunity to discover what that alignment might be, because it's not staying in California forever. I'm having this sense that I don't want to go back to work, because even where I am right now, I have quite a bit of time to myself, but it doesn't feel like enough. It feels like I want all my time to myself. Not to do nothing, but to work on whatever it is that I need to listen to and say. And maybe that's just more self-dialogue, but I would like to have that mixed in with more embodied stuff, which I haven't found that balance of embodying and talking. I guess part of it would be being able to talk and actually be doing something, as opposed to sitting talking to myself. So less abstractions and more real stuff, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about that before, but we'll see how it evolves, what I'll design for my return. And my brain will be partly the determiner of that, because we'll see if it can stay local. It seems to want to be non-local. It seems to want to travel while my body sleeps. And maybe that's okay when I'm back home. I feel like this map consciousness is a puzzle or a game, and the brain likes puzzles and games. And in a way, we as ourselves are the biggest puzzle and the biggest game. And I think that when we go into map consciousness, the interpersonal becomes more important than the personal. So we become agents of this interpersonal neurobiology that Daniel Siegel talks about. And I feel like we become more interpersonal in that we become subject to what other people's interpretations of us are. So we go into this interpersonal state, vulnerable, and at first we're really energetic, and we're kind of safe in that energy because people don't see that something is happening for us. But then as we lose energy, it's almost like we are the seed of this interpersonal vulnerability, and it doesn't catch hold, and so we fall out of it back into this personal state. But as we do, we're interpreted as having some kind of mental illness, so we're subject to the interpretations of others, and sometimes we become subject to it in that way for the rest of our lives. What I'm saying is, in that strength of the energy, the interpersonal state at first seems powerful, like we can affect others, but eventually we don't have our message strongly in place, so we're giving out all these mixed messages, and eventually we're interpreted as having a mental illness by others. So can our message be strong enough that we're not interpreted as having a mental illness? I'm not sure if that's true, but it's like learning how to drive a rocket ship down an alleyway. And I wonder if I'm a translator of this, whatever this is, translating mental illness symptoms into meaning and messages, and people with powerful messages. So I wonder, what was my message in that state? I need to translate the language that seems like mental illness into something intelligible, and that's probably what I've been doing with this self-dialogue anyway. And I wonder what we'll talk about when we're not talking about ourselves all the time. I think we would be talking about our messages, so it could be important to get the message, and the message could be that we're getting messages, and then finding messages that can meet people somehow. And part of this is taking our place in society, which means it has to be something that can meet society. And the mind is beauty, and that beauty wants to create itself through us. And it already created itself, but now it created us, and we're destroying it when we could take our place as part of that beauty. And there's another reality that's quantum, and they're starting to calculate it, but calculating it isn't living it. When they first did the calculations for flight, for aviation, that is not the same as an actual airplane, Boeing 747 flying through the air. So one is the calculations and the other is the actuality, the actuation of that. So can we actuate this quantum science? And I was listening to something that was saying that they can never completely determine the outcome of a calculation. They can only determine the possibility, and there's a pretty strong possibility of the outcome, but it's not 100%. And I feel like that's probably the wiggle room of miracles. If something was 100% calculatable, there would be no wiggle room. And I think that that inability to calculate something completely is that the universe needs wiggle room to make the miracles happen, which isn't even a miracle. It's just something that is beyond anything we've started to calculate yet. And beyond that, it's our brain can exist in that state that we're calculating. So then how do we calculate it when we are it? And now I'm back on my notes about the Neuroscience Summit, and Dr. Daniel Siegel said that you need careful observation for science, not just measurement. So in a way, I'm doing some careful observation of map consciousness and trance consciousness and talking about it. And we have this internal subjective sense. And I think the me part of that, with all its stories, is losing its hold. But part of what happens when it loses its hold is so many of the stories come out to see that we have all these stories. We are becoming non-personal. We are becoming love. And I feel like there's a science of direct perception and insight, just looking at something and having an insight into it. And I wonder how we go from short-circuiting the brain to creation. And it could be that one is not engaged with one's creation, so when the energy comes, it short-circuits because it's supposed to go towards this creation. But if one is not in that mode of creation, then it has nowhere to go. And I feel the mind is trying to change the activity of the brain and body. And Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about a process called sifting. And I wrote down that perhaps releasing this self-dialogue will affect people's sifting process related to mental health. And there was a lady that talked about crawl, walk, run. And I feel like I'm in the walking phase. I used to be crawling. Now I'm walking, and I want to get into that running phase, and I wonder what that looks like.